They laughed when she said her mother was a CIA operative. The committee hearing was supposed to be confidential, but somehow 150 students and parents filled the auditorium to witness her disgrace. Maya sat rigid at the defendant's table while Principal Hammond held up her scholarship essay like a smoking gun. The whispers intensified. "Delusional," someone muttered without lowering their voice. What began as an academic review had transformed into a public spectacle, but they didn't know about the convoy of black vehicles approaching the school or why her grandfather kept glancing at his phone with such quiet confidence. Welcome to Human Stories. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story moves you, consider subscribing for more moments when truth finally breaks through silence. The overhead projector in Riverside High School's auditorium cast harsh shadows across 17-year-old Maya Thornwood's face as she sat alone at a folding table positioned like a witness stand. The Academic Integrity Committee had arranged themselves behind an elevated platform, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. Principal Gregory Hammond, a man who measured his authority in dress code violations and parking lot citations, cleared his throat into the microphone. This emergency session of the Academic Integrity Committee is now in session. We are here to address serious concerns regarding Miss Thornwood's National Merit Scholarship essay, which contains claims that cannot be verified and appear to be fabrications designed to gain unfair advantage. Maya's hands remained folded on the table, perfectly still despite the tremor she felt internally. Her eyes found her grandfather in the back row. Retired CIA Director Marcus Thornwood sat with the posture of someone who had spent 40 years in classified briefing rooms, his silver hair precisely trimmed, his expression revealing nothing. He met her gaze and tapped his watch once, their signal since childhood. Hold the line. Trust the clock. The auditorium should have been empty. Academic integrity hearings were supposed to be private, restricted to the committee, the student, and a parent or guardian. Instead, 150 people packed the space, drawn by rumors that had spread through social media about the crazy girl who thinks her mom is a spy. "Mrs. Patterson," Hammond gestured to Maya's English teacher. "Please read the relevant section of Miss Thornwood's essay for the record." Helen Patterson stood reluctantly, her face showing the conflict of a teacher caught between professional duty and growing doubt. She had been the first to question Maya's essay, the first to flag it as too extraordinary to be credible, and now appeared increasingly uncomfortable with the public nature of this proceeding. While other mothers carpooled to soccer practice, she read, voice wavering, "Mine disappeared for months on missions I couldn't name. While other mothers taught their daughters to braid hair, mine taught me counter-surveillance techniques and how to detect when someone was following us. My mother, Diana Thornwood, serves as a paramilitary operations officer with the CIA's Special Activities Division, though her official personnel file lists her as a State Department analyst." Laughter rippled through the audience. Someone in the student section pulled out a phone to record, the screen's glow visible in the dim auditorium. "That's sufficient," Hammond interrupted, satisfaction evident in his tone. "Dr. Rashid, your professional assessment." The school district's consulting psychologist adjusted his glasses, consulting notes on his tablet. "I've reviewed Miss Thornwood's academic and behavioral records extensively. What we're observing is a classic case of elaborate fantasy construction, likely stemming from maternal abandonment anxiety. Given that Diana Thornwood has been largely absent from her daughter's life, Maya has created an alternative narrative in which this absence is reframed as heroic service rather than parental neglect. I haven't been abandoned, Maya said, her voice carrying despite its quietness. And I haven't lied. Then perhaps you can explain this. Hammond produced a document with theatrical flair. Diana Thornwood's official employment record, obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request. State Department Analyst, Foreign Service Grade 4, currently assigned to the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. No security clearances beyond secret level. No overseas assignments to conflict zones. Nothing remotely suggesting paramilitary operations. Maya's expression remained controlled, though something flickered behind her eyes. That's her cover documentation. Standard protocol for cover documentation, Hammond repeated, his smile thin and cruel. Like in the movies. Director Thornwood, would you care to address your granddaughter's claims? All eyes turned to Marcus Thornwood, who remained seated in the back row, spine straight, hands folded in his lap. I have nothing to add to my granddaughter's statement. Nothing to add, or nothing to correct. Hammond pressed. The old man checked his phone, then returned it to his pocket with deliberate slowness. Nothing to add at this time. The uncomfortable silence stretched until school board member Linda Morrison stood, smoothing her designer suit. Maya, I think we all want to help you. But these claims about CIA operations, classified missions, paramilitary training, surely you can see how this sounds. Particularly when your scholarship application depends on the authenticity of your essay. What followed was methodical dismantlement. Question after pointed question, each designed to expose what they believed was an elaborate deception. Maya answered when she could, remained silent when operational security demanded it, exactly as her mother had taught her during those rare midnight phone calls throughout her childhood. Outside, unnoticed by the crowd hungry for teenage humiliation, 3 black SUVs with government plates pulled into the school's fire lane. The dashboard clock in the lead vehicle read 3:52 p.m. Marcus Thornwood checked his phone again. 3:52 p.m. His expression remained neutral, but something new entered his eyes. Recognition of an approaching resolution. By the hearing's second hour, any pretense of educational concern had evaporated. What remained was a feeding frenzy, a community finding collective entertainment in dismantling a teenager's credibility. These training exercises your mother supposedly conducted, board member Thomas Chin continued, poorly concealing his amusement. Swimming in weighted clothing at midnight. Memorizing license plates of every car in your neighborhood. Learning to identify foreign accents by region. What were these preparing you for, exactly? Your future career as a secret agent. Situational awareness protocols, Maya answered, her voice mechanical from fatigue. Understanding when surveillance is present. Recognizing anomalous patterns in routine environments. Fascinating, Chen said, his tone suggesting the opposite. And tell us again about these midnight phone calls from overseas. Operational check-ins, Maya replied. Coded language to confirm she was safe without revealing location or mission details. Someone in the audience actually applauded the performance, as if Maya were delivering lines in a particularly entertaining school play. James Kowalski, a retired Air Force Master Sergeant who now taught JROTC at the school, wheeled forward in the designated public comment section. His face had grown progressively more troubled throughout the proceedings, but his voice carried the authority of someone who had seen real combat operations. I have some questions about these so-called covert operations, he announced. What's the standard tradecraft protocol for a dead drop in a denied area? Maya's eyes met his directly. Depends on the operational environment. Urban settings typically use pre-established locations with specific timing windows. The asset leaves material using agreed-upon signals, chalk marks, specific objects in specific positions. The officer retrieves during a separate window, never direct contact unless absolutely necessary. Kowalski's eyebrows lifted fractionally. Counter-surveillance detection during vehicle movement. Multiple vehicle changes, varying routes, surveillance detection runs through controlled bottlenecks, use of natural choke points to identify following vehicles, frequent stops to force surveillance adjustments, Maya recited. Standard protocol requires assuming surveillance at all times until proven otherwise. A muscle twitched in Kowalski's jaw, but before he could continue, Hammond interrupted sharply. Anyone can memorize spy movie terminology, Master Sergeant. Dr. Rashid, does this level of detailed fantasy align with your diagnosis? The psychologist nodded gravely. The more elaborate the constructed narrative, the more the subject invests in defending its reality. I'm particularly concerned about the specificity and consistency. It suggests Maya has been building this alternative reality for years, possibly since early childhood. A phone camera flashed in the student section. Another whispered, "Pathological," just loud enough for the microphone to catch. Mrs. Patterson, who had grown increasingly pale throughout the proceedings, attempted intervention. "Perhaps we should remember that Maya is one of our top students. Her academic record. Her academic record is why we're here," Hammond countered, producing another photograph. "This is Diana Thornwood's official State Department photo from 2019. Does this look like someone conducting paramilitary operations?" He held up the image for the room to see, a professional headshot of a woman in business attire, Maya's features clearly visible in her face, nothing in the photograph suggesting anything beyond bureaucratic government work. The laughter that followed had a cruel edge that made even some of the committee members shift uncomfortably. For the first time, Maya's carefully maintained composure fractured. "You don't know anything about her." "We know she's not here," Hammond said with false sympathy. "We know she hasn't attended a single school event in your entire high school career. We know that fabricating government service isn't just dishonest, it's potentially criminal." Kowalski's expression had darkened significantly, but he remained silent, studying Maya with new intensity, noting details that others missed, the way she positioned herself to see all exits, how her eyes tracked movement even during emotional moments, the discipline in her breathing despite obvious distress. In the distance, barely audible over the auditorium's HVAC system, came the sound of multiple car doors closing in precise sequence. But the audience was too absorbed in Maya's humiliation to notice. Marcus Thornwood checked his phone one final time, then stood slowly, drawing scattered attention. He didn't speak, just moved deliberately toward the side exit, his bearing suggesting someone with places to be and schedules to keep. Hammond noticed the movement. "Director Thornwood, you're leaving before we've concluded." The old man paused at the door, his voice carrying despite its measured tone. "I'm simply taking my position for what comes next." "And what exactly comes next?" Hammond asked, confusion replacing confidence. Marcus Thornwood didn't answer. He simply pushed through the door as the sound of footsteps, multiple sets, moving in perfect synchronization, began echoing in the hallway outside. The auditorium doors opened with such precise timing that the synchronized sound itself commanded attention. Conversation died instantly, mid-syllable. Every eye in the room turned toward the entrance. 8 figures in dark tactical clothing entered in perfect formation, moving with the economical purpose of operators accustomed to high-stakes environments. No insignia marked their uniforms, no patches identified their service, but everything about their bearing, the way they scanned the room, positioned themselves, maintained awareness, screamed elite training. In their center walked Diana Thornwood. At 39, she carried herself with the controlled readiness of someone who had operated in denied territories where mistakes meant capture or death. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tactical bun. Her civilian clothes, dark jeans, tactical boots, black jacket, revealed nothing except intentional anonymity. But her eyes, exact replicas of Maya's, held the particular intensity of someone who had seen violence up close and learned to move toward it rather than away. Recognition dawned on James Kowalski's face first. His body responded before conscious thought, spine straightening, right hand moving toward a salute before he caught himself. You don't salute in civilian clothes, but the instinct was automatic when facing someone with Diana Thornwood's presence. Diana's team spread through the auditorium with practiced precision, positioning themselves at strategic points while maintaining non-threatening postures. They carried nothing except phones and credentials, but their collective presence transformed the space from school auditorium to something else entirely. Without speaking, Diana approached the committee table where Hammond sat frozen, his earlier confidence evaporating. She placed a sealed folder on the surface, the classification markings visible even from a distance, red borders, multiple security stamps, official seals that couldn't be faked. "These documents were declassified at 0800 this morning," Diana said, her voice steady and carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent room. It was the first time she had spoken, and the authority in her tone left no room for interruption. The team members remained positioned throughout the room, their presence creating an unmistakable shift in power dynamics. Hammond stared at the folder as if it might explode. Diana opened it with deliberate movements, revealing documents that even from a distance bore the unmistakable formatting of classified intelligence materials, redacted sections, code words, operational summaries with more black bars than readable text. Presidential Daily Brief excerpts. After-action reports from operations in Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan. Photographs of Diana with 3 different presidential administrations. Commendations bearing signatures of CIA directors and National Security Council members. The final document was an executive order signed that morning, partially declassifying Diana's service record and acknowledging the existence of a long-denied program using female officers in denied areas. Marcus Thornwood had entered behind the team, now standing at the auditorium's rear with the bearing of someone who had orchestrated this entire sequence of events. His voice carried decades of authority when he finally spoke. My daughter couldn't defend herself due to classification. But she ensured her daughter wouldn't suffer the same silence. What you're seeing represents 15 years of operations that officially never happened, conducted by officers who officially didn't exist. Hammond found his voice, though it now carried uncertainty rather than confidence. Miss Thornwood, if we had known. Diana silenced him with a raised hand. When she spoke again, her words were measured, deliberate. My daughter showed more courage in this room than I've seen in some war zones. She told the truth when lying would have been easier, when silence would have protected her from ridicule. She maintained operational security even under pressure that would break trained officers. She turned to face the assembled crowd, her gaze sweeping over the same people who had been laughing at her child hours earlier. For 15 years, I've operated in environments where my cover was the only thing between mission success and catastrophic failure. That meant missing birthdays, graduations, ordinary moments most parents take for granted. It meant my daughter carried truths she couldn't share, even when sharing would have made her life easier. James Kowalski wheeled himself forward, his voice thick with emotion. I served 23 years and never knew officers like you existed, he said, addressing both Diana and the room. Some of you laughed at this girl. I want you to look at her mother's team and tell me what you've done that gives you the right to judge. The silence was absolute. Even the students who had been recording moments earlier had lowered their phones, sensing they were witnessing something that transcended social media entertainment. Mrs. Patterson stood slowly, retrieving Maya's essay from where it had been left like evidence of wrongdoing. This deserves more than any grade I can give, she said quietly, returning it to Maya with hands that trembled. This deserves to be heard. To be believed. Maya rose on unsteady legs, the hours of rigid control finally taking their toll. When she reached her mother, their embrace contained years of absence compressed into seconds, all the missed moments and midnight phone calls and coded reassurances finally made tangible. I'm sorry it took so long, Diana whispered against her daughter's hair. I'm sorry you had to carry this alone. Hammond made one final attempt at maintaining authority. This hearing isn't officially. This hearing is concluded, Marcus Thornwood stated with absolute finality, his decades as CIA director evident in his tone. I suggest you consult with your legal department about the liability implications of publicly humiliating a minor whose parent serves in classified operations. Diana's team formed an honor corridor as Maya, Diana, and Marcus exited the auditorium. The assembled crowd parted instinctively, respect and shame mixing in the faces of those who had come to watch teenage humiliation and instead witnessed something they didn't have the clearance to fully understand. Behind them, they left a room full of people confronting their collective failure, the ease with which they had chosen mockery over consideration, entertainment over compassion, certainty over the possibility that truth sometimes comes in forms they aren't clear to recognize. 6 months after the auditorium confrontation, Maya Thornwood stood in a Capitol Hill hearing room, testifying before the House Intelligence Committee's Subcommittee on Oversight. Her voice carried steady and clear, the product of months learning to speak truth that had been silent for 17 years. My mother never sought recognition, she concluded, reading from prepared remarks while Diana watched from the gallery. She only wanted to serve. But sometimes the most important service is allowing truth to be visible, not for glory, but so others know they aren't alone in carrying classified burdens. The hearing room erupted in applause, a stark contrast to the mockery she'd faced at Riverside High. Representative Sarah Chen, the subcommittee chair, leaned into her microphone. Miss Thornwood, your testimony today will inform policy affecting dozens of intelligence families. Thank you for your courage in speaking these truths. After the formal proceedings concluded, a congressional aide approached with a message. They're waiting for you in the rotunda. In the Capitol rotunda, a group of teenage girls and young women stood in civilian clothes, though their posture suggested military or intelligence backgrounds. Their leader, a college senior with focused eyes, stepped forward. Maya Thornwood. I'm Jessica Ramon, Georgetown University. My mother works for NSA's Special Collections Service. Your mother's declassified record was the first time I saw someone like her acknowledged publicly. Maya smiled, still adjusting to recognition after years of enforced silence. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's revolutionary, Jessica replied. There are 27 of us here, children of intelligence officers whose parents still operate undercover. We wanted to thank you for opening this door. Back in Riverside, the changes had been equally profound though complicated by lingering shame. The school auditorium had been renamed the Thornwood Intelligence Memorial Hall after the CIA confirmed Diana's service record. The same people who had laughed now spoke of the Thornwoods with performative pride, claiming connection to the town's most famous family. Principal Hammond had been quietly reassigned to a district administrative position with no student contact. Dr. Rashid had retired, his credibility destroyed by the viral video of his diagnosis moments before Diana's arrival. School board member Chen had resigned after recordings of his mockery circulated nationally, his small-town authority no match for public disgust. Only James Kowalski had emerged with dignity intact. The retired master sergeant had visited the Thornwood home the day after the hearing, approaching Marcus with formal military courtesy. I knew something was wrong, he told Diana as they sat on the porch. The way your daughter answered my questions, the precision. But I didn't speak up when it mattered. You're speaking up now, Diana had replied, offering him coffee. That's what counts. The letters began arriving within days. Hundreds of them from intelligence families across the country, from children who had carried similar truths, from officers whose service had remained in shadow, from people who had felt impossibly alone in their classified realities. Marcus Thornwood converted his home study into a mail processing center, organizing each letter by region and theme. Your mother received similar letters, he told Maya one evening as they sorted through the day's delivery. After her first operation went partially public years ago. These letters meant everything to her, knowing she'd created paths for others. Did she ever get to acknowledge them? Maya asked. Eventually, when certain programs were declassified, Marcus replied. She understood what visibility means when you've operated in shadows. That's why she fought so hard to come to your hearing, she knew what revealing herself would mean for others like you. He pulled a letter from his pocket, worn from repeated reading. This one arrived this morning. Special Courier. The White House seal was unmistakable. Maya opened it carefully, her hands steadier than they had been during the hearing months earlier. The Congressional Medal of Intelligence Merit Ceremony, she read aloud. They want to award both of us, her for service, me for. She paused, processing the formal language. For maintaining operational security under extreme psychological pressure. Your silence protected operations and lives, Marcus explained. That's not nothing. That's service of a different kind. That evening, Maya sat on the roof outside her bedroom window, a childhood habit from years of watching for her mother's impossible returns. Diana joined her without speaking, settling beside her daughter with shoulders touching. Do you miss it? Maya finally asked. The operations, the field work. Diana considered the question with characteristic deliberation. I miss the clarity, she admitted. The purpose. But I don't miss the absence. 15 years of being invisible to you was too high a price. Was it worth it? What you accomplished? The operations? Opening doors for female officers in denied areas? Yes, Diana said. The cost to you? She paused, finding her daughter's hand in the darkness. I'm still calculating that debt. There's no debt, Maya said firmly. You did what you believed was right. So did I. Below them, a car pulled into their driveway, headlights sweeping across the property. Marcus emerged onto the porch, posture straightening despite the late hour. More reporters. Diana sighed. Different, Maya said, recognizing the vehicle. It's Mrs. Patterson. The English teacher had been among the first to apologize, her contrition genuine and uncomplicated by self-interest. She had become an unexpected ally, helping Maya transform her scholarship essay into a manuscript exploring life as the child of a classified officer. She's been helping me edit, Maya explained. The book about intelligence families. Turns out there are more of us than anyone realized. Diana's expression showed surprise. Book? When did this happen? After the third publisher called, Maya said with a slight smile. Apparently there's commercial interest in our story. They watched as Marcus greeted Mrs. Patterson, directing her inside with formal courtesy. Diana studied her daughter in profile, seeing both the child she'd been forced to leave and the woman she was becoming. I've been thinking about your future, Diana said carefully. After graduation. Maya tensed slightly. I got into Georgetown. International Relations program with a focus on intelligence studies. I know, the acceptance letter is framed in my apartment, Diana said. But there's another option. The CIA has extended a recruitment offer. Not standard process, specialized track for candidates with unique family backgrounds. You mean for kids of officers? Maya asked. Among other things. Your understanding of operational security, your ability to maintain cover under pressure, these are skills that take years to develop. You already have them. Do you want me to accept? I want you to choose your own path, Diana said firmly. That's why I fought for declassification. So you could make decisions with complete information, not just fragments. From below, Mrs. Patterson's voice carried up to them. Maya, the editor called. They want to move up the publication date. We should discuss revisions. We should go down, Maya said but remained seated, reluctant to end this rare moment of quiet connection. One more minute, Diana agreed, leaning back to study the stars with the same intensity she once applied to mission briefings. Georgetown or Langley, author or officer, the choice is yours. But whatever you decide, I'll be here. Present. No more ghosts. Promise? Maya asked, suddenly sounding younger than 17. On my cover identity and my real one, Diana said solemnly. No more secrets between us. At the Riverside Community Pool that summer, Maya taught children counter-surveillance awareness disguised as a summer safety program. Her mother observed from the bleachers, no longer hidden, no longer denied, her expertise now acknowledged rather than classified. James Kowalski attended each session, his granddaughter among Maya's students. The girl, 9 years old with determined eyes, absorbed every lesson with focused intensity. She wants to join the agency when she grows up, Kowalski told Diana during one session. Says if women like you can do it, so can she. Diana watched the children practicing observation techniques through games Maya had designed. That's why visibility matters. Not for us, but for them, so they know the paths exist. Across town, in what had once been the Riverside Administrative Building and was now the Intelligence Community Family Support Center, Marcus Thornwood met with Mrs. Patterson to review Maya's manuscript. The book had grown from personal essay to comprehensive examination of families living under classification constraints. She has her grandfather's directness and her mother's precision, Mrs. Patterson observed, watching Marcus's expression as he read. But the voice is entirely her own. Always has been, even when no one was listening. The manuscript's final chapter included testimonials from dozens of intelligence children, their experiences finally validated, their stories emerging from imposed shadows. The dedication page carried a simple inscription, "For those who carry truths others aren't cleared to hear." On the evening before the Congressional Medal ceremony, Maya stood in a Washington, D.C. hotel room, adjusting the formal dress that had been delivered that afternoon. Unlike the auditorium hearing months ago, tonight she would stand beside her mother with full acknowledgement, no more secrets, no more enforced silence. "Ready?" Diana asked, entering in her own formal attire, medals and ribbons marking years of service that had finally been acknowledged. "Is anyone ever ready for this?" Maya replied, studying her reflection. Marcus appeared in the doorway, distinguished in his formal evening wear despite decades since active service. "The car's waiting. They're expecting media presence." "When aren't they?" Maya murmured, thinking of the journalists who had transformed their story into national conversation about intelligence families and the costs of classified service. The ceremony itself carried appropriate solemnity, with the Director of National Intelligence presenting awards to both Diana and Maya. As they stood together on stage, photographers captured an image that would appear in textbooks and training materials, mother and daughter, both recognized for service that had required years of invisibility. The director's remarks were measured but pointed. "Today we acknowledge not just extraordinary operations, but extraordinary sacrifice, not just by intelligence officers, but by their families who carry classified knowledge without the support or recognition their burden deserves." When Maya was invited to speak, she approached the microphone with the composure that had sustained her through the auditorium humiliation months earlier. But now that composure served different purpose, not survival under attack, but testimony that might help others. "For 17 years, I carried my mother's truth in silence," she said, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd of intelligence officials, congressional members, and family representatives. "Not because I was ashamed, but because that's what operational security required. Today, I stand here because silence finally broke into truth. But I'm not alone in this story. There are hundreds of children who still carry secrets, who still can't share their pride in parents who serve in classified roles." The speech concluded with standing ovation, Diana's eyes reflecting pride mixed with the recognition of what her daughter had endured to reach this moment. Later, as formal proceedings gave way to reception, young people in various professional attire approached Maya, some in military uniforms, others in civilian clothes, all connected by shared experience of carrying classified truths about family members who served in shadows. "My father's with special activities," one young man said quietly. "I've never been able to tell anyone. Seeing you speak openly means more than you know." "My mother works on technical collection programs," a young woman added. "I didn't know others lived this way until your story went public." Maya listened to each story, recognizing her own experience reflected in their faces, the burden of knowledge, the isolation of enforced silence, the complicated pride in service they couldn't openly acknowledge. Diana found her daughter hours later, still surrounded by intelligence children finally finding community in shared experience. She waited until conversations naturally concluded before approaching. "You've created something," Diana said quietly. "Not just by telling our story, but by giving others permission to tell theirs." "Is that what you did?" Maya asked. "In the field? Create permissions for others?" "I created operational possibilities," Diana corrected. "You're creating something more important, human connection around shared experience that was forced into isolation." They stood together at the reception's edge, watching classified service families connect with unprecedented openness. The truth, once revealed, had changed more than just their story. It had changed what stories others believed possible to tell. 1 year after the auditorium confrontation, Maya Thornwood stood in CIA headquarters at Langley, Virginia, not as a visitor but as an incoming analyst in the trainee program. She had chosen Georgetown ultimately, but with an understanding that intelligence work would follow after graduation. Today was orientation for a specialized program recruiting candidates with unique family backgrounds. "Welcome to the Thornwood Initiative," the program director announced to the assembled group of 23 young people, all children of intelligence officers, all carriers of classified truths, all selected for demonstrated ability to maintain operational security under pressure. The program, named after Diana's declassified service, represented a revolutionary approach to recruitment, acknowledging that children of intelligence officers had unique skills and perspectives valuable to the community that had shaped their lives. Diana herself attended as guest speaker, her presence no longer secret, her expertise no longer denied. Maya watched her mother address the group, noting how naturally she commanded the room, how her operational experience translated into teaching moments. "You've all lived with classification your entire lives," Diana told the group. "You understand operational security not as abstract concept but as daily reality. That understanding is valuable, not because it makes you inherently qualified for intelligence work, but because it gives you perspective others spend years developing." After the session, Marcus Thornwood found Maya in the headquarters cafeteria, studying the historical displays showing CIA's evolution through decades of operations. "Your mother's name is on that wall now," he said, pointing to the memorial wall's adjacent recognition display. "Declassified officers who served with distinction. Took 40 years, but names are finally being added. Does it matter?" Maya asked. "The recognition after the fact. To the officers?" "Sometimes," Marcus replied. "But to the children who come after, seeing those names means everything. Knowing the paths exist. Knowing others walked them." In Riverside, the changes had become permanent rather than performative. The Thornwood Intelligence Memorial Hall hosted regular programs on intelligence careers, classification challenges, and family support systems. James Kowalski ran veteran outreach programs that included intelligence families, his redemption arc complete through sustained action rather than empty apology. The letters continued arriving daily, from intelligence families worldwide, from students inspired by Maya's testimony, from officers whose service remained classified but who drew courage from knowing others had found voice. Maya's book, published to critical acclaim, had become required reading at intelligence training facilities and family support centers. Its honest exploration of classification's costs and benefits sparked conversations that had been impossible before truth became speakable. On a quiet evening in Georgetown, where Maya now lived during her undergraduate studies, she received a video call from a teenage girl in Nevada. "My name is Sarah," the girl said nervously. "My mom works for NRO. I can't tell anyone what she does. I found your book and I needed you to know it helped. Knowing I'm not alone." They talked for an hour, Maya sharing strategies for navigating social situations when you can't explain your parents' absence, for managing the burden of classified knowledge, for finding identity beyond the secrets you're required to keep. After the call, Maya added Sarah's name to a growing database, intelligence children seeking connection, finding community through channels her story had opened. The network had grown to hundreds, spanning every intelligence agency and military special operations branch. Diana called later that evening, checking in from a training facility where she now developed curricula for paramilitary operations rather than conducting them herself. "I talked to another one today," Maya told her mother. "Daughter of an NRO officer. She's been carrying silence for 12 years. You're building what I couldn't," Diana said. "Community around these experiences. Support systems. You built the foundation," Maya corrected. "By coming to that auditorium. By choosing visibility." They talked about Maya's classes, Diana's training programs, Marcus's continued advocacy for intelligence family support. Ordinary conversation made extraordinary by years when such open communication had been impossible. "I'm thinking about the agency offer again," Maya admitted. "After Georgetown. Not immediately, but eventually." "Because of me?" Diana asked carefully. "Because of us," Maya replied. "Because I understand what service means and what it costs. Because I want to be part of changing how the intelligence community supports families." "Then you'd be choosing for the right reasons," Diana said. "Not obligation, but purpose." When they ended the call, Maya returned to her laptop, working on the sequel to her first book, this one focusing on intelligence children who had chosen to follow their parents into classified service, exploring how to break cycles of silence while maintaining necessary security. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Rahman, the Georgetown student she'd met after congressional testimony. The message contained a photo, 23 young women in casual clothes, holding copies of Maya's book, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Next Generation of Intelligence Officers. Thank you for showing us it's possible." Maya studied the photograph, seeing her own journey reflected in those determined faces. The truth, once revealed, had created ripples that continued expanding, not just changing individual stories, but transforming systemic approaches to how intelligence communities supported families carrying classified burdens. She returned to her manuscript, typing words that felt true in ways that transcended classification levels or operational security. The most important secrets aren't the operations or missions. They're the human costs of secrecy, the families who serve alongside officers without acknowledgement or support. When we finally speak these truths, we don't compromise security, we create the foundation for sustainable service that honors both operational necessity and human dignity. Outside her Georgetown apartment, the city lights spread across the Potomac, marking the capital where secrets were kept and sometimes, when circumstances aligned, finally spoken aloud. The truth, once revealed, had changed more than just her story or her mother's. It had changed what truths the intelligence community recognized as worth protecting, worth acknowledging, worth building systems around. And in that change lived the possibility that future children of intelligence officers might carry classified knowledge without carrying it alone. This is a fictional dramatization created for entertainment purposes. It does not depict real events or real people. Maya Thornwood, Diana Thornwood, and all associated characters are fictional, inspired by the brave men and women who serve in classified roles and the families who support them. The Thornwood Initiative and similar programs are fictional constructs. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.